Everything is rolling. Let's go.
The world must know now. I want this to be in. Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Ayeman Malik, and welcome to the first podcast series of Filmabad. And we're here with Ibrahim Jahangir Khan, who is a storyteller, filmmaker, producer, and many more things that he will talk to you about himself. Hello, Ibrahim. How are you doing?
Hello, Eamon. As a you're also a multi-hyphenate. You do also. We all wear a lot of hats.
Yes, as a creative person, of course, that comes with the territory, I think.
I think this also has to do with, when I look at people in Britain in the performing arts as opposed to in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Hollywood is a much bigger industry. So if someone is an actor, like there's plenty of gigs, like, you have to be focused on one thing.
Yeah.
Not, I'm generalizing, but mostly it helps. And in Britain, you'll find people, it's a much smaller industry. So people, wear different hats.
Yeah, yes.
Because,
So in that comparison, Pakistan, and if we get more specific to Islamabad,
yeah.
that idea becomes exaggerated as
Yeah.
well, I think. On that note, how do you feel about being here on Filmabad set and part of the community, and how do you see it adding to the value when it comes to this?
Great. I mean, we've got mugs. That's fantastic.
Yes. Oh, mine's.
Hopefully very soon, someday we'll have a set as well. Like a little more elaborate. Like this is
A
nice
little
as
more elaborate, yes.
But no, this is, the cool thing is that, from idea to fruition, like it didn't take a lot of time.
Yeah.
So there's something about the kind of energy that Sadan's putting into it that's
Yeah.
working out.
Yeah.
I mean, we discussed this, like a week ago?
Yeah, not even,
Just-
I think not even a complete week has it been.
Yeah. It's been like a week to 10 days maybe. And and I mean, this happens so many times. Like people, if I had a penny for every time somebody said, let's start a podcast or let's do this or that,
If I had a penny for every time I've said that.
you could fund your next show.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But yeah, there's something, the energy is flowing.
Yeah.
There's,
And we love that. We love to see it.
he's clearly in sync with the universe, as you can see. Maybe not right now, but in a bit he's going to be.
Yeah. So
So-
tell us more. Tell we'd like the audience would like to, I'm sure, know more about you as a storyteller.
As a storyteller, so we were having a little conversation beforehand, before we started, and you were talking about how, you have become a lot more focused on film.
Yeah.
On yourself as sort of like pursuing filmmaking.
Yes.
And not dabbling in
Yeah.
everything else around it.
Yeah.
And I've done so many different things. I started writing fiction when I was in school. I think somewhere around 6th grade or so is, and I used to write completely stream of consciousness. मतलब कि अब मैं खुद fascinate होता हूँ कि
Yeah,
like
that is a very interesting word.
कि, and I mean process तो I don't know क्या process था, but like basically pen रखा और वो
Just it goes,
चलता
yeah.
गया, and they used to be stories that my siblings enjoyed reading them, and I mean they had like a beginning, middle, and end. They were
but
interesting
like I'm
stories.
sure it wouldn't be as structured where you have arcs, you have the climax, and then
They weren't intentional, but the
yeah,
thing
it
is
wasn't
that
intentional, but of course it must have been there for them to be enjoyable like that, right?
yeah, I mean I don't know, but the thing is that I have no idea where they came from and how
That's actually very
what the process was. So I kept doing that, writing, sending some things in, writing a bit of poetry, doing theater whenever there was, which was usually like once a year in school.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
and then when I moved to Samad, I did a bit of theater on the side, acted mostly or AD'd on projects. And then at some point, NCA here started this diploma in playwriting. And, I was like, great. I was working on a script at the time. And I thought, okay, I got stuck in the third act. I had no idea what structure was or anything, but I had a sense of the thing, and I was writing it, and then, like, 2/3 of the way, like, I didn't know how I was going to wrap it up. And I was like, okay, I'm going to enroll or ye sort ho jayegi cheez. So I took it with me. And, Salman Sabai was one of the instructors, and he just set it aside. He was like, this you can bring to me at VTV. you know just let's focus on the learning aspect.
Okay.
And when they started to break it down, obviously, like, you start to learn about what the inciting incident is, like what structure is, all of those things. And I mean, the first response is like a kind of revolt, right? Because you're like, no, this can't be. All of the technicalities that you're being taught, you want to sort of, like, I don't know, with something inside you rebels against them. कि
I
नहीं,
couldn't agree more.
हाँ
Yeah.
होगा ये, मतलब,
Yeah.
लेकिन
But
मैं
I don't care for it. I think for me it was the same with poetry as well. Like I'd be like, I don't need your structures. Let me just put my heart out to what I'm putting
Yeah.
in. Please go on.
So yeah, so I think that it really sort of undid my natural process, where even now, if I look back, I don't know, as a kid, like, how I used to do that. Now I look back at it and I was like, that's fantastic. I think a lot of people write prose like that still. I mean, I think process हर किसी का थोड़ा different
Yes,
होता है.
of course.
But then for the next couple of years, I think it might have taken me half a decade, if not more, to sort of wrap my head around, because it felt very counterintuitive कि अच्छा मैं कहानी सुनाऊं या मैं beats hit करने के बारे में सोचूं या and I think that's every time you approach story, you have this sort of there is that fight between.
Have you felt like it's limited you, the structures?
It's okay, so this is really interesting. It feels limiting when I'm working, when I'm trying to structure a story that
Yeah.
I want to tell. But when I'm helping somebody else, structure their story, I feel like I have this toolkit that
Yeah.
it feels very intuitive to use, and I like, you can break a story like within half an hour. You can be like, okay, this is what act you're in.
Yeah.
When you're talking about a
I
specific
hear
chunk
you.
of history. Like, all of those things I'm not able to do for myself, which is really annoying. That if you came to me with a story, I'd have such clarity on it,
Yeah.
on what's cool about it, and like how it should be told, or like how it can be structured.
But for you, like you said, from a very early age, storytelling has been a very intuitive thing for you. It's been a very like unconscious process that just came to you and you just put it out, right?
Yeah.
And so to come from that to learning and understanding structures and trying to implement them in this entire process, now, do you feel like you incorporate more of that? And do you feel like writers here, for instance, in Islamabad, should be incorporating more of that, or should they be going with their instinctive processes just instead? Because the tool is there ideally to guide you, right? In case you are in a hurdle and to make your story work a certain way. Do you think that that is a necessary tool, or can they do without it as well?
I think the basics are necessary
Yeah.
to understand and
Yeah.
practice. And I don't know about like individual, like, writers who, so, there's a whole community of writers who are focused on film. And, when I talk about when I talk about breaking a story, I'm talking about feature length, like shorts.
Yeah. Of course.
Like, that's a completely different animal. But film, yeah,
So
it's a
shorts
little.
are not film. Is that a dig
No,
on
no, no.
everybody?
I'm saying shorts. I find I can't. I don't know how to hack
Ibrahim?
that. What makes a short? No, I'm not dissing shorts.
All right.
I'm saying, कि, if you, I think,
Yeah. So,
just a little bit of.
okay.
All right, shorts.
Shorts.
Ask
Okay.
me.
Okay.
I think you might want to open the door.
Yeah.
For me. I think.
No, I'm fine.
नहीं फिर क्या इसी मतलब
Yeah, it's all right.
it's fine है वो हो रहा है रिकॉर्ड
You're not getting contact high
Yeah,
or
yeah.
anything.
Who knows? I've been here since like 12.
रेड है
Huh.
बस ठीक है
It's cool.
सही है कंटिन्यू
Shorts, I'll
Okay.
pick it up.
Okay.
Shorts are a different animal. I feel, I still wonder about that.
Yeah.
कि अच्छा, what makes a short? I might have an idea about a short and I know कि अच्छा, okay, this is a short, but like, if someone says, okay, this is the theme and like we have to craft a short, I don't feel like I have and I've spoken to different filmmakers as well and I've tried to study it as well and there are different ideas of what makes a short. But I wouldn't consider myself,
Yeah.
any sort of expert on that.
So, the thing that I was talking about before, where I was asking you about these laws, you can say, right? So you have these laws in order, okay? This is what we base a story around to structure it. Of course, there's the act structure, then there's other structures as well. Most people follow the act structure, right? But then there's also that thing where in order to break the rules, you need to know them. I think that
Yeah.
would be an important point because for people to understand how they're going to meander around
Yeah.
that, they need to be very well aware of what those are.
And I think this sort of applies quite a bit to our film industry.
Yes.
And our TV as well.
Yeah.
Because, with film, I think there's a very small percentage of filmmakers who actually have a sense of what, a sense of story of, okay, a film is about something.
Yeah.
It needs to be sort of well-rounded. And in a lot of ways, I feel like it kind of meanders the same way that जो हमारी पुरानी लॉलीवुड वाली फिल्में मतलब एक ट्रैक के साथ शुरू होती थी फिर बीच में एक और ट्रैक आ जाता था उसके अंदर एक और गाना होता था मतलब वो 7-8 एक्टर्स जो होते थे उन सब के अपने ट्रैक्स होते थे एंड देन देयर वर आई डोंट नो सम लाइक 7 plots as well.
Yeah.
It's slightly better than that, but a lot of times when you go to cinemas to watch Pakistani films, and I tried to watch everything until 2019, until the pandemic, I tried to, catch every single film, even if I was the only one. And I realized that a lot of films don't know what they are. Like in the first half hour or so, there's something else.
Yeah.
And then, then they sort of, meander into something else. And then, by the end, there's something else. And it shows, a lack of clarity on the writer's
There's a lot of
part.
disconnect within
Yeah.
the story that I've also, yeah.
And I feel like that's basically a lack of knowledge of, or a lack of craft as a writer, as a film writer.
Yeah.
Because we have a tradition of TV in our
Yeah.
country, and I think that our drama is decent enough that it's sort of like it's better than
Yeah.
a lot of other places, I suppose. So it has that certain impact, in whatever Urdu speaking diaspora in our neighboring countries and whatnot. But it doesn't translate into film because film mein you really, really like you have those 2.5 hours and you really need to make.
It's a different format, of course. So what we try to do is we try to map the same knowledge, the same understanding of a medium onto another medium, and of course it wouldn't be the same. It would look like we're just like it's a shrinked up drama, for instance. That's something that I felt with a few films as well.
I mean, I see it and I was like, before they started shooting, they needed to sit down with somebody and go with the script. And it's the cheapest process. It doesn't cost anything. But and the thing is, this happens in Hollywood as well, where like the release date and everything is set before
Yeah.
a script is finalized. It happens all over the world. But I
Yeah.
think in Pakistan the problem is that like Hollywood has that particular formula of how to write a film, that sort of like save the
Yeah.
cat
Yeah.
kind of, Blake
Yeah.
Snyder kind of roadmap
Yeah.
that they've developed. It has developed kind of organically, and now it has become this sort of cliche, but
Yeah.
it emerged there. And then if you look at that and then you look at like a commercial Hindi film, you will realize that they don't apply that formula. Their commercial films apply like a slightly different first half, second half formula, where in the first half their film is they really do deliver two films in one. Like in the first half is about something else entirely, and by the interval they sort of arrive at
Yeah.
that sort of like point of what the second half is going to be
Yeah.
about. So they've got their own structure that's evolved, and their writers, it's sort of in their blood. Like they know what it takes to craft
Yeah.
a Hindi film. Here, that hasn't really happened.
So one argument on this that keeps coming up when I have these conversations with peers and other like people around is that they're like, oh, this is what the people want. This is what they demand. So we give them this content because this is, and I don't feel that way anymore. Maybe 2 years back, I would be like, okay, fine, maybe this is an issue. But the more that I dive into like meet people in the industry as well, like Filmabad ke through all the people that we get in touch with as well, and you see that is not really
No,
the
but
case.
the thing is that argument in this case doesn't hold at all, because the thing is, the whole idea of structuring your story properly is so that what are you going to do? You're going to set up expectations and you're going to pay them off. But at least your film needs to be about something.
Yeah.
It needs to know what genre it is, what the tone is. Like you can't be doing comedy and then all of a sudden there's children being molested in the middle, and then you can't treat an issue that important with such levity, right?
Of course.
And tonally you can't start with one thing. Like you can't market a film as, oh, this is a really fun, like uppity film, and then
Yeah.
it turns out to be like a 3-hour drama about a jealous husband and wife. That's
That's what I said ना
Yeah.
कि वो हम basically drama वाला structure, drama वाली story को, because drama has very long lengths, so you can have 20 hours for instance on one story, and if you try to just compress that, there will be too much going on
right.
for it to hold like a stream of
Yeah.
one
But
plot.
it's not a matter of what the
Yeah.
audience wants.
Yeah.
If they were crafting their stories better, tighter, you can, everywhere in the world, like the two kinds of cinemas exist everywhere. There's commercial cinema, which is only there to entertain the widest possible audience, and you have parallel cinema, which is more artistic, more sort of nuanced,
Yeah.
for people who are more serious about, for connoisseurs of cinema.
Yeah.
That happens everywhere. It exists everywhere. You don't have to make masterpieces. In fact, I think we're a little better in that regard. We managed to turn out like good artistic films. If you look at the ratio,
Yeah.
that they still somehow come out every year or so, and there's
Yeah.
at least one good film, right? You've got Lal Kabutar,
Yeah.
you've got Kamli, you've got like this.
Could also be because if you put it like that, our output is limited. If you look at Bollywood or Hollywood, the number of films that are going out each year are drastically higher than what is happening here in Pakistan, right? So then what it does is the size of quality films also decreases because the pool is already so small, right?
Yeah. Well, one thing that I find really interesting is that matlab, Bollywood is a force to reckon with.
Yeah.
वो लोग उन्होंने पूरी दुनिया कॉन्कर कर ली
Yeah.
है. And the thing is, अगर आप when you look at it, तो ये नहीं हो सकता, वो fluke नहीं हो सकता. I think that has happened because the Indian government has probably
Yes.
it has taken them decades,
Definitely.
but they've made, laws,
Definitely.
regulations, whatnot. They've ensured that it prospers, and they
Of course.
realize the importance of
That is a big part, of course.
so here the thing is, right now Pakistani film is dominated by like a few studios. वो
Yes.
2-3 studios हैं और वो अपनी effort कर रहे हैं, right?
Yeah.
Now you can't really hold them accountable because they're sort of looking at the bottom line.
Yeah.
They've already done quite a bit in sort of like setting things in
Yeah.
motion.
Sorry, I'm cutting you, but as a student, I had like a very brief interaction with one of these studios, and I had a complaint. I was like, everything's just happening. All the work that's being done is being done in your circles,
Yeah.
in very limited circles. So everybody outside is just like alienated from that community. So the community is basically just all of you guys, right?
Yeah.
And so this person looked me straight in the eye and he was like, whining won't get you anywhere. Just go out and make things. And I was like, okay,
Well, that's what.
that's how it works, I guess.
This is a good place to plug in Filmabad. Like that's why.
Yeah, that's
I-
why. And I think that was like that point stuck with me because it was a very prominent statement from a person that I consider to be a prominent part of
Yeah.
the industry here, And it wasn't meant to be rude or harsh. It was just that to make things, you have to go and make them. You can't sit and whine about or complain about how, once I get into this, then I'll be able to achieve this. You start somewhere and you'll get somewhere. You make your own communities, you make your own circles
I
here.
have so many thoughts on this.
Please share.
So the thing is, there's a screenwriting fellowship called Kalambas,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I'm aware.
And I'm an alumni, and I still work with them
Yeah.
every year on the jury. So I see new writers that are coming in. Last year जो हमारा intake था वो पढ़ के I was like, अगर ये intake होता तो I won't have gotten in. Like, so you've got this huge community of writers जो कि polish हो रहे हैं, आ रहे हैं और फिर घर बैठ रहे हैं. मतलब they're finding other things to do.
Yeah.
When we sometimes do this thing called it's called Salon, I think, Kalamba Salon, which is like, some established filmmakers, come in and sort of have a conversation with us. And the thing is कि अक्सर लोग नहीं आते. मतलब जो हमारी जो कलम्बास की फाउंडर हैं इरम परवीन बिलाल, she's very well networked, so she knows people socially or professionally or whatever, and she will talk to them and they will say, yeah, I'd love to sometime, but it never really happens. And then even when they come in, it's this thing that exists like with film actors and theater actors as well, is that they're there, right? They're professionally making a lot of money, but they kind of feel reluctant because they're like, these people know a lot.
Yeah.
So there's this kind of awkwardness. So I think something like that exists in the industry where they feel like agar वो नहीं होता कि they feel like there's going to be just a lot of snobbery,
Yes.
and this attitude is what you get in response. कि अच्छा जाओ खुद कुछ करते क्यों नहीं हो,
Yeah.
right? It's sort of like saying कि अच्छा you just know how to criticize.
Yeah.
And obviously we're going to criticize because when we're not getting opportunities to be part of those films, we're going to nitpick and say, all of these things are off.
Yeah.
But there's that reluctance exists.
Yes, it
because whoever's in the industry, all of the big names, lots of respect for them.
Yeah.
I feel like अगर कोई कहीं पे है तो उसने मेहनत की है, अपना टाइम लगाया है तो वहाँ पे पहुँचा है.
Of course.
You can't take away from somebody just because their process was different. But किसी का process भी academic नहीं रहा जो हमारे major creators हैं. तो वो I think that's one of the huge factors, that there's this sort of isolation.
There is that isolation.
Insulation.
Insulation in the isolation.
And
For
they want new talent, but वो talent it's like अगर आप सिक्स सिग्मा की फिल्म पे AD करते हैं, फिर अगली पे AD करते हैं, then अगर उनको थोड़ा सा वो हो जाता है कि अच्छा ये तमीज़दार बच्चा है वो, So and slowly then you might be, so that, and I think that respect is important as well.
Yeah.
But ये एक चीज है. The other thing is, unfortunately, a lot of filmmakers in Pakistan, there's a lot of cannibalizing content that comes from like amateur filmmakers, young filmmakers. So you will see, एक NCA grad की फिल्म की वो होगी जो विजुअल्स होंगे, वो आपको एक मेन स्ट्रीम क्या कहते हैं, सीरीज के अंदर वो विजुअल्स आपको नज़र आ जाएंगे. You will see literally your scripts, being. And the thing is, the reason for that is that there's like a batch of filmmakers who, jumped in when film was just happening, when there was a market. There were filmmakers who jumped in and made awful films, but they made their first films. And once you've made a film, then now you no longer have to find necessarily film investors. They also know you and they will also find you. And so there comes a point when you have people telling you that they're looking, for someone to, they're looking to finance a series or produce a series or finance a film, and they might not like the ideas you have. And people don't have a lot of, qualms about taking an idea that someone pitched to them or taking a script that somebody gave them and just, turning that into, and that happens even with some of the most well respected filmmakers. This is something that I've seen happening where, I एक बहुत अच्छा theater play देखा, और instead of taking the original script, talking to the playwright, went to a different writer, got a similar structure, whatnot, replicated, which didn't make sense. The original makes sense, made like a critically acclaimed film out of it.
Yeah.
So I've thought about why does that happen?
Yeah.
And I think उसकी वजह probably ये है कि people don't know. Again, I think all of this is happening because there are no institutions, grants, the process nahi hai, right? So I'm a filmmaker who's made films, and I've got sort of like producers lined up to, anytime you want to pitch, like, we want to see, क्या कहते हैं उसको, first view, they call it something.
Yeah.
And I have read something of yours, like you were a student of mine or something, and I've read a script, or you shared a script of yours, and that thing has stayed in my mind, and I have ideas. I don't love it as it is, but I like the seeds of, I was like, I would do this with it and it could be great.
Yeah.
I think what happens is that, in Pakistan, budgets are kind of limited as it is.
Yeah.
So people imagine that it would be less messy to just not include you, because what if I go to this girl and I invite her, and then, will she know how to, like, negotiate her part of the, will she understand that, I can't give her the entire writer's fee for this project, that she's going to be one of the writers, and, I will need to write or rewrite with someone else, or that I'm just using the germs of what her plot is, or what a certain aspect of a story is, and the rest I have to build up and I want credit for it. And as a already produced writer and filmmaker, I want my fee for it as well, or whatever. So they just bypass that whole process.
I
Just
I hear that, and I feel like personally that doesn't sound very nice.
no,
Because see, when you
it's completely unethical.
it is. So if
it's
you were to
criminal
just
behavior, like,
if you just include this person in, how else would you create a culture of inclusivity, or how else would you remove that isolation between you and the rest of the community? If you keep going in these cycles over and over, then you go and you would say things like, oh, we are like inclusive, we are welcoming, we want more people to join in, but then essentially practically you don't, right? Because you would take out whatever you can, take up whatever you can, and then you push those people out regardless. And I think that increases that distance again. And I feel like, for instance, new people coming in, you mentioned, for instance, you're doing the writing fellowship, right?
Yeah.
So if there's new people coming in, there has to be a way to retain them so they don't go and abandon this completely. If somebody has a skill, if somebody has a talent, somebody has a natural flow, you don't want them to abandon it. That's the point of even Filmabad as a community, that you include people in and you give
But
them
I
the
think that's a
space
good
to.
test. I think,
Yeah.
as much as you would want for them there to be grants in order to keep that alive, the thing is that that's how most of us know that this is not something you try to shed it even. You try to make life easier for yourself by, like, okay, if I could somehow put this dream to sleep, like maybe I can
But that is so awful.
do
That
something
is
that brings like good money. And the thing is,
so if you don't have, if you're not getting the right, if you're not getting the kind of opportunities, if there's gap in distribution for opportunities, that like, I don't see it as a test really. I see it as a very harsh thing to be placed on one side, because then I don't think dreams being put to sleep is a very
but you
nice
can't.
way
Huh?
to, I
You
guess.
can't. It doesn't. If it's
It's
there, like it
yeah.
doesn't, it's going to, haunt you.
Yeah.
It's going to haunt you. And I think this is something that happens. I mean, the latest thing that comes to my mind is there was this huge controversy. There still is about, there's a series on Amazon Prime called Made in Heaven.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, Zoya Akhtar and Rima Kagdi, I think are, finest filmmakers in the Hindi film industry right now. And the first season was great. The second season I haven't seen, and I've heard a lot of things about it being cheesy, but there was this controversy about this episode that's about a Dalit woman who writes a book. And it is, so the Dalits are, have traditionally considered untouchable or
Yes.
whatnot.
Yes.
So apparently there's this thing where in Indian society, like a lot of them hide that identity.
Yes.
So that it was all about this woman sort of writing a book about, coming out as a Dalit, like owning her Dalit identity and subverting that. And so there's an episode about that. I think it's the sort of like a lesbian wedding in it with a Dalit woman marrying, a woman from another class. And it is directed by a Dalit director, male, the only male director on the roster for the series. And this a Dalit writer, female, who has written a book, about coming out as a Dalit person. She came out and she was like, "This is my story. This is my life, and I am not credited. I haven't been, approached for this." And so there's two sides with like some very credible people like vouching for the filmmaker and whatnot, and saying her book was definitely part of our research, but it's not based entirely on it. But the thing is, what is that? I think these are budgetary constraints. Like if they
Yes.
had more money, then they would be like, okay, maybe we can give all of the writers
I
credit.
feel
as
like
well.
that is an excuse also. Because see, when you're on a set, for instance, something a renowned producer director is doing, you choose where your money goes. It's not like you don't have the money. You choose where it goes, and you choose to restrict it from a certain place because it suits you better. That's how I feel personally. Like, of course, there's always sides to things, and also the state of the world that we're in right now. I don't know how you define who is really credible and who isn't. Also, it's a very gray sort of a situation with these things.
But I mean, filmmakers here, they're not gonna mentor you. They're not going to.
They
If they
gatekeep.
feel,
Everybody gatekeeps, and I
what they
don't.
do is when they talk to you, they quickly gauge whether or not you're somebody who has the resources to make things happen or to create trouble for them. If they steal from you, and if they find that you're somebody who's not connected, they will go ahead and pitch that project whenever the opportunity arrives without running it by you. I have somebody who signed an NDA with me and who went and did a version of that. And again, like, I only deal with filmmakers that I respect. Like, if I see somebody whose work I'm like, this is, then people feel so many times you talk to people about a script,
Yeah.
and you have a great conversation, and then they obviously want to see the script, and where you tell them, you'll be comfortable signing an NDA, and they say, yeah, of course, send it to my, and then you send an NDA, and it feels a little bit like it's taken as an insult because you never get the NDA back. And so you're forced a lot of times to send NDAs together with the script or whatever. You want to leave that window open, that
Yeah.
privilege that you have with, talking to somebody
Yeah.
who, is an established filmmaker. And I mean,
I hear you. It's
so
that
so
is
they have
state of
absolutely
affairs, yeah.
the option of, like, if they like your idea of taking you under their wing, but I've never seen it happening.
Yeah, so most people would not offer you that because at the end of the day, see, even the thing that what I was telling you before, where I spoke to this person, and the idea was that given that I was a student, right, as a student, I'm going and I'm sharing this thought, but that thought wasn't just sheer the passion of being in the film industry or wanting to do more. It was more than that. It was something that, you see a structural challenge constantly at every step of the way, and it makes this place in your head and it wouldn't leave, right? That thought keeps reoccurring, that there is a certain, I don't know if monopoly is a strong word to use here, but there is that isolation, there is that boundary there that disconnects you from the major chunk of the film industry
Yeah.
or film professionals in Pakistan. And so even when I went with that thought, it had come from a lot of what I'd seen, what I'd experienced, what I'd seen other filmmakers, like accomplished filmmakers around me as well, experience. And at the end of the day, I feel like that is the reality for us, for now at least. So, and on that note, I feel like Filmabad is such a wonderful then initiative to be doing in Islamabad, because Islamabad may generally he limited as ज़्यादा.
Right. So I
Yeah.
think why don't you tell people what Filmabad is and how they can, be a part of it? Okay, we'll cut to a message of this point.
Yeah. What?
You'll see a very chilled out dude, and he's gonna tell you
Yeah. He's
about
just gonna,
Filmabad.
so this is gonna be one of those things how.
Okay, so Filmabad is basically it's a community for filmmakers. The community itself is based in Islamabad, although it's also opened to filmmakers from the rest of the northern part of Pakistan, I would say. That includes Lahore and everything else that surrounds us, Abtabad, Peshawar, wherever you're from. But the idea really is to sort of like, provide a platform where people can collaborate. So if you're somebody who wants to make a short film, you can reach out and maybe find collaborators. They organize, meet and greet sessions where you can network and find, talk to other filmmakers. And hopefully, hopefully it can.
And the best thing really is that everything that we're talking about now, about collaboration, about connecting, about providing that assistance, providing that support, that is something that's a major part of this initiative, where we offer support, not just support that goes beyond like assistance in that way. So it's practical support. For instance, if you need studio support to shoot something, we have people here who would be able to assist with that. Then we have,
that's the idea, to sort of
Yeah.
pool so you can
so everybody connects.
you can bring your own
different-
resources,
Yes.
whether that's your skills as
Yeah.
a individual, or whether that's equipment or space or
Yeah.
whatever, and you pool that towards other people's projects, and you
Yeah.
can also take
So we
it.
collectively assist each other in doing more of what we love, basically.
Right. So hopefully, I think this is an important segue, because I think that one should not have any expectations from the people, like whoever, whatever the status quo is. I do feel like there's sort of in survival mode themselves. whatever, there's like maybe 6, 7 filmmakers, and they're just trying to stay afloat, like making sure that they have another project lined up.
Yes, of course.
But at the same time, I think the film ecosystem is sort of very unstable. Like
Yeah.
Pakistani film will have a surge and then shut down and surge and shut down.
Yeah.
And so I think that newer filmmakers, I think we should constantly be exploring,
Yeah.
trying to find new markets, new distribution methods. And I think one thing that's really important is to constantly recalibrating your idea of what film is and what medium, length, whatever it can be. Because if you think about it, like, I mean, I'm in love with the idea of like cinema, like
Yeah.
2.5 hour film,
Yeah.
like trains and like smoke and romance. But the thing is, like, we live at a time where screens are everywhere. And the thing is that for the longest time, if you made short form, like, it had nowhere to go. And now there's like,
So many
so many
platforms
places.
to reach to. So, on that note, right? So, when we talk about the future of film, the future of creatives, filmmakers, I think this is where it goes, right? Because everything's now digital. Screens are not just in the cinema, like you said, they're everywhere. So, that gives you more space to put your work out and make it like accessible for audiences all around.
I think, you know, it also, the opportunity also is to be more inventive in sort of like, how like film has its own grammar and everything. Being in Pakistan, TV, even film now, everything has a mold. There are limits. There's all of this self-censorship that happens. And I think it's nice to sort of stay within those lines
Yeah.
as long as but I think you can also step outside. You can toy with the boundaries when it makes sense to do that,
Yeah.
for your particular story. And I think right now, I mean, if young people are disillusioned, I don't think that you can blame them for it. And so I would expect them to, put their voices out there, to go and tell their stories in as authentic a voice as possible. Because I think for as long as things like, filters, censorship, platforms, as long as those things are serving you, it's fine to like, respect those boundaries. But when they become counterproductive, I think that you can just, toss them aside and, speak in your most authentic voice possible. So that would be really cool if we see, and I mean, it's bound to happen.
Yeah.
There's so many young filmmakers that don't have opportunities to make features, but if you see their thesis work, if you see
Yeah.
their films, you can tell that they hold a lot of promise. I think that's also, you know it's also understandable, like, if more established filmmakers feel a little insecure when they see that, because या तो opportunities हों बहुत ज़्यादा, ठीक है, so people would think अच्छा ठीक है, I can't direct everything, I'm going to direct this particular thing and I will produce something that,
Yeah.
but there isn't enough work to go around, so people just, right now you have easily, I think, a dozen, 2 dozen, like, really promising filmmakers who don't necessarily have the resources or the contacts to put like a short or
I
feature
think that's a lesser number. I think the number is quite high with those.
Yeah, but I'm talking about people with like proven, like, if you
Okay.
look at their
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
you'll be like, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean,
Thanks, Ibrahim.
this
Thanks, Ibrahim.
this is what you needed to hear.
Yeah, that's for you, Sadan.
No, I mean, one is
He's just.
Joke,
right here. Um. So yeah. So like, hopefully, like, something will happen.
Yes.
Some wave will happen.